looking at this witchcraft and how unholy history repeats itself, and how I was attacked. Originally backdated to 2004, year 2004, and again in 2014, and again in 2024. So here, invading my home when I was pregnant, here when my daughter's dad died and they kidnapped my daughter, and here they are looking to throw me out of my own home and make me homeless, or make me leave England. So these are the same bitch and bastard society, which is a cat dog type that is stuck. That is actually stuck in the dog, not stuck in the cat north. So this cycle are enemies, and those who are stuck in the dog are my enemies. So Jesus said, I've come to separate the goats and the sheep. And so these are the ones who are the most guilty at copying, identity fraud, identity theft, this personality disorder, which is the north-south. North-south is the dog, and Jesus calls the cat as the sheep, and the dogs as the goats, useless goats. And so this is the one that's harmed me the most, that happens to be my father's personality disorder, and also Jay, the original man who had condemned me for 20 years of my life, since going through a divorce, robbery and rape. And this is how it all started in my old neighbourhood, backdated in 2004. My daughter was born in 2005, so they stalked and spied me, moved accommodation where I was, with someone else's guy, cheating, typical. So ironically, even though they have the cat dog, their first nature or the second nature, even the third nature, even the fourth nature, it needs a lot of purging. It's the most wicked, it's the most evil. And I don't believe that I believe that Jesus probably had the first nature east personality or west personality, not the first nature north or the first nature south. I don't believe that Jesus was that for the first nature. And so this is how it happened. I'm trying to find exactly what I'm looking for in 1 Kings 14. So all the way from 2001, the stalker spying on me, stalking me, purchasing houses, and all of this. It's inscripted here. So this tyrant is founded in this section. So if we did a Bible code, maybe he would pop in here. So the very ones that God gave power to destroy my life for 20 years because I was married to the devil, who was also the first nature or the second nature cat of the cat, but a bit of both. This is devilish, it's demon possessive. Very creepy. And where it says how they disguise themselves to be someone else, so the two brothers disguised to be someone else, and it was foretold by a prophet about Jeroboam He says, God has given you the quivers like the reeds of the water to uproot Israel. In other words, God knew I was going to go through a divorce before I was going through a divorce and domestic abuse. And God has allocated that enemy to destroy my life. And he has been empowered by politicians in Parliament of London and others associated there who are anti-migrants. So I ended up with nothing. And so they had been a bad warrior used by the devil, that God had allowed this to happen as a slave master. And his child was sick at that time. So they had disguised themselves. Am I reading 1 Kings? No, I'm reading 1 Samuel. I want 1 Kings. So I am going to find 1 Kings chapter 14. And again, when I abstained from sex for 18 years, 17 years, still today's date, 2024, and I was molested by the man whose door is 14. Door number 14. All seems to be interconnected. It's no coincidence. 1 Kings chapter 14 I'm looking for. How this man had started all this invasion as a bad Vader. So he, as a result of them making my daughter sick, she's now age 19. So she's probably having teenage sex. Silly sex. Or she isn't. Maybe she's becoming a lesbian, but they're making my daughter sick. So Jeroboam, who has moved into my neighbourhood the second time in connection to this man called Jay, it could be his friend, it could be his enemy, I don't know. All I know is that they're connected somehow as social and domestic terrorists. So he told his wife to go and disguise herself. When the man of God heard the footsteps at the door, he said, "Come in, the wife of Jeroboam. Why pretend to be someone else? I have only to..." He says, "I have bad news. Go and tell Jeroboam, God of Israel says this, I raised you from the people and made you a leader of my people. And I tore their kingdom and authority of the house of David and gave it to you. But you have not been like my servant David. You have not kept, who has kept my commandments of love, and who followed me with all heart, strength, mind, and soul. And you have done more evil than your predecessors, your ancestors. You gave yourself to gods, idols, cast metal, provoking me to anger, and turned your back on me. I will have a disaster on the house of Jeroboam, wipe out every man jack of his family, and his lot." And it says, Jeroboam's family would have a proper burial for him alone. But God of Israel, can God find anything good here? So the Spirit of God is hovering, looking for someone who is honest, versus the misdeeds of those who are malice troublemaking through disguising themselves to be something that they're not. So they're the ones who are the most guilty personality disorder. It is not the dog-cat type, it's the cat-dog type, who are either in a cycle or who are stuck in the dog, the south, the dirty south. It says, you have made Israel commit horrible crimes at the sacred poles. I will unroot Israel, so the land of Israel and the spiritual Israel, for provoking God to anger. What you have done deliberately, and you sent your wife as your messenger at Tirzah. When she crossed the threshold of the place, the child was already dead. They buried the child. Israel mourned and cried for the child, just as God foretold through the servant of YHWH, the prophet. The rest of the history of Jeroboam, wars and waged, is governed, how he governed, in politics. So there was politics here involved, and it was the prophets who were in charge of politics. Not the other way around. But unfortunately, many prophets were killed by many of these ancient politicians. So it's not only about religion, it's about man's ego, who has more fame, who has more fortunes and treasures. It says, entrusting them to God. So again, they've gone and stolen everything that I have, and copied everything, and all the shameful things that they have stolen from a single mum who had had domestic abuse. They had no shame. All that information, and even the children's programs such as The Guardians, The Owlets, The False Good Guy, and False Pure Ones. False Purity, called The Legend of the Guardian. I notice they've stolen that. If not stolen, they're dominating it. Legend of Guardian. So this is the evil spirit dominating the legend of the Guardian of the False Pure Ones. Is probably also inscripted from the Holy Book, the Holy Witness, going through hell and bringing heaven on earth. Through 1 Kings 14:15 and all the way to the end. And how this personality type is the most dangerous. So I have said it is the cat, dog. That is a soul cycle, a bit of both. Perfect balance, but it becomes extreme when they don't allow God to, they don't surrender to God to be as a potter to shape them as a potter shapes the clay. So they have an extreme personality disorder. Even though it comes across as balanced and fair, it's actually unfair. Particularly those that have a cycle, or those who are stuck in the south. So they're stuck there. Or they're unstuck. So I'll just do half a circle like a letter D. So they're unstuck. So they're stuck or unstuck. Most evil personality disorder. Tyrant. So we're not doing the occult here. This is biologically proven and scientifically tested. What is the personality compass of the south and the north? So here in the government, we're looking at the left, and the north would be the right government. But it is alien type of DNA and genes and personality disorder when it has the cycle, it's stopped or unstuck, and it does not repent. Or it's very extremely confused, or extremely serious, or extremely silly from one extreme to the other. So this is an example of an unholy. The one who persecuted me the most, his name was Jay. Then he passed me on to someone else to take over as a slave master taxpayer. Slave master, taxpayer, working class, homeowner, work class, class war, and homeowner. Toxic man. Home own. So all of this is only the devil has had more time to practice doing evil. And it's inscripted, he's inscripted here with all his lot, his friends and his foe, enemy. In this personality disorder. So what's important is that they do God's will. So this would be definitely my enemy, but these could be my friends. However, they're false friends until they actually do God's will. So I'll make a note here. So these are my enemies, so foe and God's enemies too. And these are false friends, and they can only be my friend and God's friends and God's people when they do God's will. So even the angels rejoice when they do that. They're unstuck, or they're stuck or unstuck. So sometimes you have to be still and know God when we're suffering either a mental breakdown or a physical breakdown, for God to help us. Or we are unstuck. That means we, as an individual or group, have a responsibility or a reaction to something. So all of this chapter, I don't know how far it goes into because I haven't read all of it, is looking at that particular personality disorder. The first nature, the second nature, even the fourth nature where you have a strong cat. If you're stuck in the cat,